By accident, I stumbled upon Ethan Shen's phone. He had sent a video of me walking with a cane to a group chat. One message in the chat read, "Who understands this? Every time I see her limping around, I feel like I could throw up." If I'd known I'd have to spend my life with someone I don't love, I would have rather lost the leg myself. I just want to run away from this wedding. In the next instant, I was taken back to the moment of the accident, just like Ethan always wanted. This time, I didn't rush to save him. This time, he was the one who lost the leg and went blind. Later, when Ethan went to take a shower, his phone buzzed with messages. When I glanced at the screen, I unintentionally caught sight of the conversation. "Why not just go out, get drunk, and make a mess of things?" One text said, "That way, the wedding won't happen tomorrow." Or just disappear altogether. "Come back in a month, and I'm sure her parents won't blame you. You've taken care of Jenny for 3 years already. You can't be expected to throw your whole life away on her. Just give her family some money. Make it up to them. You could even pretend you don't remember her." I stood there, shocked, my hands trembling. I couldn't believe that the person I'd loved for 10 years, the one I was so anxiously excited to marry, was planning to run away. Each line of chat I read dragged my heart down further. "Who understands this?" He'd written, "Every time I see her limping around, I feel like I could throw up." If I'd known I'd have to spend my life with someone I don't love, I would have rather lost the leg myself. If it weren't for the fact that the Jiang family's company is still worth something, I wouldn't have put up with this for so long. Every word was filled with disdain. He had even shared the video of me using a cane in a group chat. In the video, the space where my left leg once was lay empty, amputated below the knee. 3 years ago, when the accident happened, I didn't hesitate to shield Ethan from harm. I took the brunt of the impact, losing my leg as a result. I had been a dancer, but now I was without a leg. In those dark days, Ethan had seemed so compassionate. He lifted me gently into his arms, stayed by my side, encouraging me as I practiced walking again. He whispered to me, "Jenny, don't give up. I'll always be here with you. If you can't walk for the rest of your life, then I'll be your legs." But the messages in front of me now felt like a brutal slap to the face. The video he took, supposedly to encourage me, was nothing more than a source of ridicule for them. My effort to walk again was nothing but a pathetic joke to him. As I started to sob, Ethan walked into the room. "What's wrong, Jenny?" he asked, his voice tense. When he saw my tear-streaked face, he kissed my forehead gently. "Are you nervous about the wedding tomorrow? Is my Jenny having pre-wedding jitters?" I turned my head away and bit my lip hard. When I avoided his embrace, Ethan instinctively tried to hold me, but when he saw the phone screen, his face turned pale. He snatched the phone from my hands, his eyes wide with panic. I forced myself to stay calm, but my body wouldn't stop trembling. Confronted by my questions, Ethan couldn't utter a single word. Finally, his pretense faded, and he dropped the facade entirely. "You don't understand anything," he snapped at me. "Do you know what these 3 years have been like for me? Every time I go out with friends, they have beautiful girlfriends by their side, and there's only me, all alone. Do you know how many people laugh at me, knowing my girlfriend is a cripple? I want to enjoy life like a normal person, too." Each word he spoke cut into me like a blade, slashing my heart open. His gaze was laced with pity and scorn, as if the last 3 years of tenderness had been nothing more than charity on his part. "If I could, I wish you'd never saved me," he said. My nails dug into my palms. In that instant, I wasn't sure which pain hurt more. A burning, suffocating feeling overwhelmed me. All I could hear was the buzzing in my ears, and my mind went blank. Suddenly, everything around me changed. I was no longer in the apartment Ethan and I had shared for the last 3 years. I was in the back seat of a car on the day Ethan and I went to pick up our graduation certificates from college. There was a loud crash as a truck speeding by hit a car ahead of us, which veered to the left. Our car was hit from behind, and my back slammed against the seat. This time, as Ethan had always wished, I didn't throw myself in front of him. The last thing I saw before losing consciousness was Ethan trapped in his seat. I had a long dream. In it, I walked down the aisle in a white wedding dress, heart bursting with joy, waiting for my prince. But in the next moment, the screen that should have shown moments of Ethan and me together suddenly displayed clips of me breaking down in despair, crying uncontrollably. The guests were all pointing fingers at me, and my groom reached for another girl's hand instead. He smiled and said, "Jenny, forgive me. I just can't spend my life with someone I don't love. I can give you lots of money, but I can't keep taking care of you. The only one I've ever loved is Chloe." He left me standing there alone at the altar with everyone's eyes on me, filled with pity. I felt like a clown abandoned by the whole world. Filled with a hatred I'd never felt before, the intense hatred threatened to swallow me whole. Stumbling and unsteady, I moved like a madwoman. The scene shifted. I found myself on the rooftop of the hotel, the hem of my white wedding dress fluttering in the wind. I spread my arms wide like a butterfly about to take flight. All I could hear was my mother's desperate scream. When I woke up in the hospital, Ethan Shen was already in the emergency room. For a moment, I was stunned, unable to believe I had truly returned. I thought it had only been a dream. But as I pinched the flesh on my left leg, the pain felt real. Overcome with joy, I burst into tears. My mother hugged me tightly, her warm tears soaking through my clothes. "Jenny, you nearly scared me to death," she said, her voice trembling with the relief of having me back. But unfortunately, Ethan. Memories from my previous life surged. My mother struggled to hold back tears. In the chaotic, mournful cries at the wedding, everything felt like it had happened in another lifetime. How lucky I was to have a second chance. Bearing the pain, I limped to the door of the emergency room, where I could hear the heart-wrenching cries of the Shen family. "No, you can't amputate," one voice shouted. "How could you? Ethan is so proud. He would never accept this." It was Mrs. Shen, crying in despair. Yet despite their pleading, the doctor regretfully shook his head. "He has a comminuted fracture and there's also a blood clot in his brain. If we delay any further, we might miss the best window for treatment." In the end, Ethan lost his leg and it was worse for him than it had been for me. His entire left leg was amputated from the hip down. The doctor also said that due to the blood clot in his brain, there was a high chance Ethan might go blind. Over the next 2 days, I frequently visited Ethan. The person lying in bed, pale and unmoving, was nothing like the proud, vibrant Ethan I once knew. I sat silently by his bedside, waiting for him to wake up, ignoring my own pain. To everyone else, it seemed like I was deeply devoted to Ethan. Even Mrs. Shen encouraged me to go home and rest, but I stubbornly shook my head, squeezing out a few tears. "I'm fine," I whispered. "I just want to be here when Ethan wakes up. I don't want him to feel sad." In truth, I just wanted to see him wake up so I could say to him, "Your crippled state is truly disgusting." What would the golden child of the Shen family think when he realized he hadn't only lost a leg, but was also blind? On the 5th day, Ethan finally woke up. The room was a mess, courtesy of him. A nurse was picking up shattered pieces from the floor while Mrs. Shen stood nearby, her eyes red and swollen. Though weak, Ethan had enough energy to rage. He hadn't completely fallen apart yet. Perhaps I had underestimated him. He lay on the bed, vacant eyes staring at nothing, resembling a lifeless doll. Just as the doctor had said, the pressure from the blood clot had left him temporarily blind. When his condition stabilized, he'd be able to see again. Mrs. Shen pointed to Ethan's leg, then shook her head at me, and I suddenly realized he didn't yet know his leg was gone. But I had no intention of letting him remain in the dark. Acting as if nothing had happened, I rushed to his side, gripping his hand and sobbing. "Ethan, stay strong! We can get you a prosthetic leg. You'll still be able to ride horses and race." I knew Ethan would be devastated, but I hadn't expected his reaction to be so extreme. He gripped my hand tightly, his voice tense. "What did you just say?" "Say it again." Startled, I couldn't pull away from his grasp. Despite the pain in my hand, I continued to comfort him. "Ethan, if you want to cry, just cry. I'll stay with you." Like a madman, Ethan tore the IV needle from his hand, trying to reach down to feel his leg. But he found nothing. Stunned, he started to tremble, then screamed, pounding his remaining leg with his fists. Mrs. Shen rushed to hold him, but he shoved her away, shouting, "Get out! All of you, get out!" For a long time, he sat there, exhausted, finally letting go with a look of despair, his voice tinged with tears, like a trapped animal. I stood nearby, laughing bitterly, tears streaming down my face, not out of sorrow for him, but because I was reminded of my past self. In my previous life, when I first learned about my amputation, I had felt the same despair. I had trained in ballet for 18 years. Even my teachers had said I was destined to be the brightest light on stage. But I lost my leg, and with it, my dream was shattered. I would never forget that darkest time. I locked myself in my room all day, unwilling to see anyone. I just wanted to hide in a secluded corner. Everything seemed to touch my raw nerves. I couldn't stop myself from self-harm, even contemplating suicide. It was Ethan Shen who broke down the locked door and pulled me out of the blood-stained room, holding me tightly and gently kissing my cheek. "Jenny, I'm sorry I didn't protect you. You blame me, but don't hurt yourself." He convinced my parents and brought me to his apartment, promising with utmost sincerity that he would take care of me for a lifetime. But in the end, it was all a lie. After we got engaged, Ethan used the resources of the Shen family, which were superior to the Zhang families, to rapidly expand the Shen Group's business. In just 3 years, the Shen Group became one of the top enterprises in the capital, leaving the Zhang family far behind. He even sabotaged the Zhang family in a land bid, suppressing the Zhang Group both overtly and covertly. I remember my mother hinting at these things, but I was too dependent on Ethan then to see what he was really plotting. It wasn't until I saw those chat logs with my own eyes that I realized how terribly wrong I had been. Looking at the devastated Ethan lying in bed now, a thought of Chloe crossed my mind. Since I had been reborn, I would repay Ethan for everything he'd done to me. If he didn't love me, I would force myself to stay by his side. I'd make him rely on me, fall in love with me until he couldn't live without me, only to then throw him into despair. So I hugged Ethan, speaking each word deliberately under Mrs. Shen's shocked gaze. "Don't worry, Ethan. I'll take care of you for a lifetime. Even if you've lost a leg, I'll still be with you." I took on the responsibility of caring for him, visiting his apartment every day without fail. To the outside world, it looked as if I loved Ethan to an extreme. Even Ethan himself believed that. Because who would sacrifice their future for someone disabled? When my mother learned I had volunteered to care for Ethan, she almost locked me up. Her eyes were full of confusion. "Jenny, I know you care about him, but his misfortune has nothing to do with you. Why throw away your own future?" I remembered Ethan's cold accusation. "Jenny, go ask your parents. Ask them how they forced me." I didn't know what methods my parents had used to make him compromise, but despite his reluctance and disdain, he had taken care of me for 3 years. Now I'd never know the full truth. Only after I assured my mother of my clarity did she finally relent. Just as in my past life, the disabled Ethan grew irritable and quick-tempered. Unable to see, he became hypersensitive and paranoid. He constantly complained that the footsteps of the nurse were too loud or that the cook's food tasted bad. He changed multiple caregivers and smashed numerous objects by his bed. Within half a month, no one could calm him except me, because only I knew the depths of Ethan's pride and what he needed most. When he subconsciously pursed his lips, I'd hand him a warm cup of water. When he shifted repeatedly, I'd help him to the bathroom. He didn't like the cook's food, but enjoyed the soups I made. No one knew how many pots of soup I had made for him during those 3 years in the past. I knew his tastes all too well. In less than a month, Ethan drove all the caregivers and servants away. From then on, I was the only one allowed in his room. Sometimes, Ethan would look at me with a hint of confusion and say, "Jenny, you're so good to me, but Ethan, don't deserve you. You shouldn't." I knew Ethan had begun to depend on me, but it wasn't enough. I pressed my fingertip to his lips, my voice soft as water. I understand everything. I just feel sorry for you. I don't care about anything else as long as you get better. Ethan said nothing more, but his eyes softened further. With my attentive care, Ethan's temper gradually improved, and he broke fewer things. He relied on me more and more, but I knew he hadn't fully fallen in love with me yet. Deep in his heart, there was still his white moonlight. As he recovered, Ethan's brain clot was ready for removal. The Shen family arranged for a top-notch surgeon to operate on him, and the surgery was a success. On the day the bandages were removed, Ethan's mood was visibly uplifted, his eyes constantly darting to the door. I knew who he was waiting for. After countless glances, a figure in white finally appeared. It was Chloe, a talented dance major from University AA, and my roommate. People often referred to us as the double beauties of the dance department. Chloe had exquisite skills and grace. During sophomore year, Ethan had fallen for her at first sight. Since then, every time he came to see me, it was actually because of Chloe. I loved Ethan Shen for 10 years. To say it didn't hurt would be a lie. But Ethan never rejected me outright, nor did he give me any real response. I knew I had lost thoroughly and had already quietly stepped back. Yet, it seemed they never ended up together either. I wasn't jealous of Chloe at first, but on the eve of the wedding, I discovered something on Ethan's phone chat records between them. Ethan, I've missed you these past 3 years. Chloe, me too. I regret not accepting you when you liked me. Now I realize the one I truly love is you. If I come back and steal you from the wedding, will you go with me? Every time I recalled those words, I felt nauseated. I wanted to see if this Chloe, who dared to publicly disrupt a wedding in my past life, would still love Ethan this time. So when Chloe looked at Ethan with tearful eyes full of pity, I brought over the supplies to change his dressings. Ethan, it's time to change your bandages. The atmosphere of intimacy was abruptly interrupted, and the air seemed to freeze for a moment. I paused awkwardly, standing in place. Is this a bad time? But the doctor said it's time for the daily bandage change. It's fine, Jenny. Give it to me. I'll take care of Ethan, Chloe said, reaching for the supplies in my hand, preparing to change his dressings. I was more than happy to let her. I knew she wouldn't miss this scene. As Chloe carefully peeled back the bandage on Ethan's leg, she visibly recoiled in shock. His left leg was amputated above the thigh, with the scarred, swollen, and still healing wound a haunting sight that spread like a beast across his skin. There was a loud clang as Chloe's medicine bottle fell to the floor and shattered. She instinctively took a step back, her face showing both shock and fear. The air froze once more. The room was so quiet that everyone's breaths were audible. Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, Chloe stammered, her voice trembling, while Ethan's eyes filled with hurt and disappointment. I'll leave you two to talk, I said quietly, excusing myself from the room, wanting no part in their tangled drama. As I walked out, I heard Ethan's hoarse voice questioning, Are you that afraid of me? Am I so terrifying? Ethan, I didn't mean it that way, Chloe's voice faltered, thick with tears. Shortly after, there was the sound of something being thrown. I couldn't help but smile to myself. Ethan was indeed furious again, but apart from throwing things, it seemed he could do nothing else. Then came Ethan's angry shout, Get out! Get as far away as you can! Don't ever come back! I don't want to see you again! Chloe ran out of the room in tears, shooting me a resentful look as she passed. Without turning back, Ethan even threw the flower she had brought, narrowly missing my face. I smirked, realizing that so-called true love didn't hold up well against disability. Chloe's reaction had destabilized Ethan's fragile emotions once again. He resumed his destructive rages, throwing objects and even cursing. When he threw his phone once more, I finally saw a hint of impatience in Mrs. Shen's face. After all, Ethan wasn't the Shen family's only son. Since Ethan's disability, his father had only visited once. It was clear to me that Mr. Shen had given up on him. Mrs. Shen, overwhelmed with managing the family business and dealing with external issues involving mistresses and illegitimate children, no longer visited him every day, coming only every few days. Ethan must have noticed his mother's change too, as he grew even more volatile. Each time he erupted in anger, I silently watched from behind the door. He refused to let anyone else near him, and the servants didn't dare approach. When he yelled for water, I pretended not to hear. Only after he'd shouted several times, reaching the peak of his fury, would I step in, gently taking his hand and soothing him. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I was making soup and didn't hear you. I'll be quicker next time. Please don't get upset. It's not good for your health." Even in his rage, Ethan would glare furiously at me. I stubbornly turned away, wiping my tears in frustration. "If you really hate me that much, I can leave." Finally, a panicked expression crossed Ethan Shen's face. He gripped my hand tightly, fragile and desperate. "Don't go, Jenny. I have no one left but you." Time passed, and gradually, I realized Ethan couldn't live without me anymore. His body was slowly recovering, and I was thrilled to have finally been accepted into a city's ballet company. After 3 years, I stood once more on the familiar stage, almost moved to tears. As the light music played, I stretched my feet, lifted my shoulders like a butterfly in flight, and reached my arms upward as if I could touch the starry sky. Each leap and spin filled me with endless energy. Because of my exceptional performance, the director recommended me for a ballet competition. To practice more, I went to Ethan's apartment less frequently. His caretaker called me several times, and when I finally made time to visit, "Miss Jong, you're finally here." Young master had another tantrum, and we couldn't calm him down. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw Ethan's expressionless face. His first words were accusing. "What have you been so busy with lately? Why haven't you come to see me?" Raising an eyebrow, I realized that even the once proud Ethan Shen was now just like anyone else. I smiled at him and happily shared. Before graduation, I applied to join a city's ballet company, and I got in. The director even chose me to represent the company in a competition. I ignored the increasingly dark expression on Ethan's face and continued, growing more excited. "That's enough, Jenny," he cut me off. I quickly covered my mouth, fighting a slip of the tongue. Then, glancing down at his empty left leg, I lowered my head apologetically. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't mean to. I was just so happy. I've been so focused on practicing that I neglected you. Once the competition is over, I'll definitely..." Before I could finish, Ethan punched the table hard. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Just flaunting my ruined leg to mock me," he sneered bitterly, murmuring, "Even you see me as useless." Startled, I took a half step back, momentarily lost. I thought of comforting him but hesitated. "I didn't mean it, Ethan. If you don't want me around, I can leave." Wiping the tears from my eyes, I turned to go. Suddenly, there was a heavy thud. Ethan had tried to reach for me, but in his desperation, he had fallen from the bed. Seeing him like this, I remembered the time he had mocked me, saying, "Jenny, you look like a clown hobbling around." Now, it was him who resembled a clown. If I could, I'd capture this moment to show Ethan exactly how pitiful he looked. Since that day, Ethan grew even clingier, as if afraid I'd leave. He began calling me endlessly every day. Busy with ballet practice, I often ignored his calls only to find streams of messages from him. "Jenny, will you come see me today? Jenny, I miss your rib soup. The caretaker's just doesn't taste as good." I didn't respond, simply muting my phone. "My ballet friends." Teased, "Are you fighting with your boyfriend?" I laughed and shook my head. Not a boyfriend, just someone clingy and needy. I suddenly realized that playing hard to get worked well with Ethan. With his family's abandonment and his perfect girl out of reach, he had become a cast-off no one wanted. Meanwhile, I had become his most important emotional support. Watching him oscillate between fear of losing me and intense dependence, I knew my plan was working. All I had to do was mention leaving and he would desperately beg me to stay. For some men, it seems the unattainable is the most desirable, and I found it deeply satisfying to mess with Ethan every now and then. Ethan's birthday was approaching. Since his accident, he had avoided people and cut contact even with his childhood friends. A week ahead of time, I contacted his old friends and prepared a big surprise for him. On his birthday, they showed up early with a huge bouquet, and his closest buddy even brought a limited edition sports car to surprise him. As they entered, Ethan was practicing walking with a crutch. "Hey, Ethan, look what we got you!" The latest supercar. Our eyes met. At that moment, I could clearly see the shock in everyone's eyes. Apparently, the outside world hadn't yet heard that Ethan Shen, once the pride of the Shen family, was now disabled. His friends stammered as they tried to greet him, calling him Brother Ethan, while his face turned ashen with a look of shame and discomfort. Who could have imagined that the once golden boy, Ethan Shen, would end up in such a state? Since the accident, Ethan could hardly stand the mention of cars, and the arrival of his racing buddies along with a luxury car as a gift was like salt in his wounds. His fists clenched tightly, the veins on his hands clearly visible, and when he saw the car keys in his friend's hand, he nearly roared. "Who let you in here? Who told you to come? Get the hell out!" And just like that, what should have been a pleasant birthday celebration was ruined. I escorted Ethan's friends to the door, apologizing awkwardly. "Please don't take it to heart, Ethan. He just hasn't come to terms with it yet." They all nodded understandingly before leaving with regretful expressions. Back in the room, I was met with Ethan's dark, angry gaze. He gritted his teeth, saying, "Jenny Zhang, you did this on purpose, didn't you? You wanted them to come and mock me?" I looked down at him from above, nonchalantly. "Did I?" His expression shifted to one of infinite sadness. He looked at me almost pleadingly. "Why are you doing this? I was ready to spend my whole life with you. I love you so much." I couldn't help but laugh. Back when I needed his love the most, he found me repulsive, complaining to his friends every time we were close, saying, "She's disgusting. Can't stand touching her. When will this end?" Now that he was the one with a crippled leg, he was prepared to commit to me for life and claimed he loved me? What a joke! I didn't need such cheap love. Now it was my turn to feel repulsed by him. So I recited to him the words I'd long prepared. "Bro, who would understand? Every time I see her limping around, it makes me want to throw up. If I'd known I'd spend a lifetime with someone I didn't love, I'd have preferred to be the one to lose a leg." Watching Ethan's face fill with confusion, I stepped closer and leaned into his ear, smiling as I whispered, "How does it feel to be humiliated, Ethan? Because in my previous life, you treated me just like this. Did you really think I'd devote myself to loving a man like you?" Ethan's eyes widened as if recalling something, and he gripped his head, trembling in pain. He fell to the floor, rolling in agony, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. I looked on indifferently, feeling a deep satisfaction. No one knew how many nightmares I'd endured since my rebirth dreams where Ethan pretended to cherish me, only to push me into the abyss. Waking up from those nightmares, I would often be shaken, fearing my rebirth was just a dream, and that I'd soon return to being Jenny Zhang, the bride abandoned on her wedding day. I fixed my gaze on his injured leg, spitting out the words, "Ethan, you look truly disgusting with one leg." At last, Ethan crumbled completely, staring up at me with bloodshot eyes, a pitiful growl escaping his throat. I ignored him, opened the door, and left, his desperate plea echoing faintly behind me. "Jenny, don't go, please." With that, my ties with Ethan were fully severed, and I no longer needed to visit his apartment. I focused solely on preparing for the ballet competition. A few days later, news spread through our circle that the Shen family's heir had become a recluse. Ethan's mother called me a few times, each time begging me to visit him. I refused again and again, but she wouldn't give up. "Ning Ning, please, just go see Ethan. He won't listen to anyone else but you. Just visit him at the hospital for old time's sake." After hanging up, I found it laughable. After all I'd done to him, he still wanted me to visit? He wasn't afraid I'd say something even more hurtful? I dismissed it, focusing entirely on my training. Day and night, I practiced tirelessly. No one knew how much effort I put into it, but I knew how much I'd longed for that stage over the past 3 years. Every move, every turn, filled with elegance, brought tears to the audience's eyes. Finally, the day came, and I won the competition with a resounding victory. The applause thundered through the hall, almost deafening, and tears filled my eyes. In that moment, I forgot the hatred, the pain. I was nothing but the shining swan on stage. It felt as if a heavy stone in my heart had finally lifted. The competition had ended, and with it, so much more. I received a call from Ethan Shen. His voice was gentle, with a faint hint of laughter. "Jenny, congratulations!" "Thank you," I replied in a haze. I heard him take a deep breath and say, "Jenny, I remember everything from before. I know I wronged you, that I toyed with your feelings. You have every right to hate me. But I never wanted you to die." I turned my head to watch the neon lights flicker outside and didn't reply. "Jenny, do you feel anything for me besides hate?" he asked, his voice hesitant. "No," I cut him off, firm and resolute. Some things were doomed from the start to be beyond repair. There was a brief silence on the other end before I heard him murmur, "I see." The next time I saw Ethan Shen was in a hospital corridor, sitting in his wheelchair. His face was pale and exhausted. The once vibrant young man seemed like a withered old soul. His nurse told me he was refusing treatment, and his injuries from the car accident had flared up again. After Ethan became disabled, it only took a few short months for his illegitimate half-brother to be openly welcomed back into the family and take over the Shen family business. Ethan's mother was so infuriated that she ended up in the hospital. While turmoil consumed the Shen family, Ethan seemed to have no desire to fight for anything. He stayed in his apartment day after day, staring blankly at the crabapple blossoms in the garden. When our eyes met, Ethan's expression froze in surprise, and an uncontainable glimmer of hope flickered in his gaze. "Jenny, did you come to see me?" he asked. Then, almost immediately, he laughed bitterly. "Of course not. You hate me too much." He looked at me carefully and asked softly, "Jenny, if there were a next life, would you forgive me?" I gave him a calm smile. "Ethan, it's all in the past. I don't hate you anymore, but I also don't want to forgive you." As soon as the words left my mouth, the last glimmer of light in his eyes faded, leaving him in despair. Although I no longer hated him, I would never forget the rage I felt the moment I learned the truth. I could let go of my hate, but forgiveness was out of the question. The last news I heard of Ethan Shen was about his death. Ethan, the young master of the Shen family, had taken his life at 30 a.m. in his private apartment in Biona Bay. He died from a self-inflicted wrist cut, and by his side was a bouquet of fresh crabapple flowers. Crabapple blossoms were my favorite. In my previous life, to make me happy, Ethan had filled his entire garden with them. Maybe, just maybe, Ethan did truly care for me back then. A gentle breeze passed outside the window, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the boy I once genuinely loved. He would congratulate me with flowers whenever I won a competition, take me out to celebrate all night. When I did poorly on an exam and got scolded, he would pull me to the library to study. When I left him speechless with frustration, he'd tap my forehead with helpless affection. I would push through a crowded hallway holding his backpack like a fool, watching him play basketball, and then ride home together on his bike at sunset. Back then, I thought we'd be like that forever, never knowing reality would leave us both battered and broken. Much later, I learned the meaning of crabapple flowers, bittersweet longing and hopeless love. Just like me and Ethan. When I loved him, he looked down on me. By the time he looked back, I no longer wanted to turn around.